Okay, I am standing here at the Isaac Lightner Farm, which was a First Corps field hospital here in July of 1863. And the series of videos that we're going to do is on the Isaac Lightner Farm and the White Church, White Run Field Hospital that was here for about a month and a half starting on July 3rd, 1863. And in our first stop, we're standing here along the Baltimore Pike. Now, the Baltimore Pike got its earliest starts around 1769 when it was called the Baltimore-Shippensburg Trail or Baltimore-Shippensburg Turnpike. And it was about 50 miles from Baltimore where our camera is going, and then it headed into the town of Gettysburg and then north to Shippensburg. Later, around 1807, it was called the Baltimore or the Gettysburg-Petersburg Turnpike, Petersburg being an early name for the town of Littlestown. And of course, we did videos about a mile and a half up the road on the G. Fleming Hope Toll House, which was one of the toll houses on the Gettysburg-Petersburg Turnpike. But here along the Baltimore Pike, you'll see the sign that says Civil War Hospital, Isaac Lightner Farm, 11th Corps, July of 1863, and it was erected in 1983 by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania. Now, the reason that this sign says 11th Corps is even though this was a First Corps field hospital, one of the surgeons that was here was from the 11th Corps, and when these signs were placed here, they were placed based on the surgeon that was here. So the surgeon was from the 11th Corps, but it is to be noted that this was a First Corps field hospital here at the Isaac Lightner Farm. This has been the Isaac Lightner Farm, Part 1, on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. Field Hospital marker, the Army of Potomac Medical Department. The Isaac Lightner Farm is here in the distance. This is going to be part 2 of our video series on the Isaac Lightner Farm, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Marx German Reformed Church that was here during the Battle of 1863, and I'm going to point out a few things while we're here on the church property. Of course, the Marx German Reformed Church was part of the field hospital of the First Corps. It was used as a field, the building was used as a field hospital itself in July of 1863, and wounded started being brought here on July 2nd. As we move to the Baltimore Pike out here, here where it crisscrosses with White Church Road, in the distance is an old farm lane that goes back to the time of the Civil War. And in a later video, we're going to go down that farm lane, walk down that lane to an overlook area, and we're going to show you an overview of the Gettysburg battlefield. As we stand here, as we look around, most of the view is obstructed by buildings or trees. However, when we walk up this farm lane later, you're going to see how it opens up. Okay, now we're going to walk back over to the church. Now, the church here was built in 1789, and originally it was a log-hewn building that had a weatherboard on the outside. In 1889, that was changed to a brick structure. Now, since we're talking about the Lightner family and the Lightner farm, which is just over here in the distance, they had 2 children that died at a very early age, and they're actually buried here in the second row on the south side of the church, not too far from this tree, which, by the way, is a witness tree. This tree was here when this church was being used as a field hospital. Now, the building was under the leadership of George Trobliner in 1789. Later in 1836, it was called the Union Church. And as I said, the original structure was hewn logs with a weatherboard outside it, and it was painted white. It was 45 foot long, and it originally did not have a steeple. It was a one-room church. It had an 18-foot ceiling in it. and it was primarily used by General James S. Wadsworth, who was the 1st Division of the 1st Corps, as his field hospital. Now, when the church was being used as a field hospital, the doors were removed and made into operating tables. The pews that were on the inside were taken and they were used as bunks, as was some of the weatherboard that sat here on the outside of the building. They were made into bunks and beds for the wounded soldiers here. And this is the cemetery. The second row here is where the 2 children of the Lightners are buried. And also throughout the cemetery you'll find veterans from the Revolutionary War, the War of 1812, and the Civil War buried here, all in this very small but very old, one of the older cemeteries here in the Gettysburg area. But this has been the Marx German Reformed Church. Now, the reason it's called Marx German Reformed Church is for 2 reasons. One was it was named after the second gospel in the Holy Bible, or the gospel according to St. Mark. Another reason was a man that lived just in the distance, and right here through the trees you can see a clearing, and I can actually see the red light down today where Route 15 crosses, just in the clearing over here. And just on this side of the bridge lived a man named Nicholas Mark. And Nicholas Mark, we did a video on his house, which was the house that General Dan Sickles had his leg amputated, and it's where Dan Sickles spent the night of July 2nd, 1863. Well, Nicholas Mark also owned this property all out in this vicinity, and he donated the ground for what the church would be built here. So this church is named Mark's German Reformed Church for the Gospel of St. Mark as well as Nicholas Mark. Again, it was in a perfect location because it sat here along the White's Run. It was a fresh water supply. The farm of Isaac Lightner was just across the street in the distance. It had a very good farm, apple orchard, wheat, rye, grains, and of course the brick house was brand new in 1863. It had only been there, and it had a beehive oven, which they baked fresh pies and breads for the wounded soldiers. This has been the Isaac Lightner Farm, Part 2, here at Mark's German Reformed Church on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. The Isaac Lightner Farm, Part 3. Now, a little bit about Isaac, his wife, his home, and what he did as his occupation. Isaac was born in 1808, and he lived until 1880. His wife, Barbara, was 1 year older than him. She was born in 1807, and she died in 1896, and both Barbara and Isaac are both buried in the Evergreen Cemetery. This house here was built in the year 1862, so it was only 1 year old at the time of the Battle of Gettysburg, when the Battle of Gettysburg came here to the town. Now, a little bit about Isaac and his occupation. We know that he was a sheriff here in Adams County in Gettysburg, and he was the sheriff during the Battle of Gettysburg, but he also owned a 123-acre farm here that the house and the barn sat on. 23 of those 123 acres were wooded. So he had 100 acres worth of farmland, 23 acres worth of woodlot. He was a carpenter that got a lot of his wood from his woodlot. Also, his skill as a carpenter helped him in building this structure here and the barn that used to sit behind it. On this farm, which was in the vicinity that we're looking at now, in the 100 open acres, he grew wheat, he grew rye, clover, he raised cattle, he had oats, as well as other farm materials here. And as we'll look at in a later video, a lot of these materials and crops and livestock were procured when this was used as a field hospital here in July of 1863. This has been the Isaac Lightner Farm, Part 3, on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. North side of the Isaac Lightner Farm, and as we turn this way, we're going to be looking over here at this northern field here on the Isaac Lightner Farm, which was used as the tent or field hospital here in July of 1863. Approximately between 200 to 300 soldiers were in this area here that we're in now, and they had a tent set up. The operating rooms of the house were the front two parlor rooms, which we're going to do a video in a couple weeks with the owner of the property here. She's going to take us through the house, which is going to be a real treat. But the tents were set up out here. Now this was a perfect location because of its vicinity around White Run. So there was a fresh water supply. Also because the cookhouse, which sat where this white building is, had and contained, and still does contain, we're going to look at it in a later video, a beehive oven, which was perfect for baking. So you were able to have fresh water supply for wounded and dying soldiers, as well as baking for like baking bread. Now, two of the persons, or more notable persons, that were here at this field hospital were both from the 5th Maine Battery over on Stevens Knoll, and that was Captain Greenleaf T. Stevens of the 5th Maine Battery, and also the man who was wounded more times in any battle in the Civil War, including Gettysburg, was John F. Chase. And John F. Chase was wounded 48 times at the Battle of Gettysburg. And he would later return to Gettysburg, as did Greenleaf Stevens, and they would talk about the care that was given to them by the Lightner Farm. Now, John F. Chase, wounded 48 times, would also be a recipient of the Congressional Medal of Honor. Now, one of the things here about this farm was when it was used and procured as a field hospital, after the battle, after everything was over, after the field hospital had moved on to Camp Letterman, the Lightner family had a damage claim for items that were removed or procured during the stay here as a field hospital, and they included wood that was here on the property, which was being used to finish projects such as the carriage house, which you see over here, and even projects on the house and the barn that once stood. There was wood, there was shingles which were on the roof of the house, wooden shingles that were used for kindling. There were 3 sheep, a bull, 3 hogs, 36 chickens, 5 turkeys, and a hive of bees. Also some supplies, farm supplies, and homeware supplies were lard, bacon, dishes and glasses, and tools that were taken, used, broken, etc. During this occupation as a field hospital. Now, Lightner would later put a claim in here for $1,675. This has been the Isaac Lightner Farm, Part 4, the Farm Hospital, on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. Part 5, the Scenic Overlook area. The Isaac Lightner Farm and the farm and orchard would have been in front of us here beyond the woods where our camera's facing. And as we turn around, we can see the roof of the white church there in the distance. Okay, right over here. And then over here is the northwest part of the battlefield. This is the Scenic Overlook area here at the Isaac Lightner Farm. You can actually see all 3 days' battlefields. The first day here The second day, southern end of the battlefield, especially in the winter when the trees aren't in, you can see the round tops, and of course Pickett's charge over here on the third. So if you were one of the men from the First Corps that was wounded, and most of their woundings had been taken on the first day's battlefield north and west of town, and you were well enough, you could have come out here into this area and seen the area that you were wounded on the battlefield just a few weeks previous to that. This area is also known because it's part of Mount Joy Township and not too far from where we're standing. In November the 13th, 1833, there was an extremely large meteor shower that came down on the northeast part of the United States. And a meteor weighing 800 pounds crashed here in Mount Joy Township, which Gettysburg is a part of, into the ground, and a local man named Jacob Snyder, who was digging a hole to plant an apple tree, hit this meteor, and actually they dug it out of the ground. This meteor was extremely large. It weighed 800 pounds, and it was cut up and sold as souvenirs because it was the largest meteor ever to hit east of the Mississippi River at the time it fell here in 1833. So this is one of those little known facts about the Gettysburg area that not many people hear of, and its connection to the area before the Battle of Gettysburg, this happening in 1833. This has been the Isaac Lightner Farm, Part 5, the Scenic Overlook and Secrets to the Battlefield, the Mount Joy Meteorite, on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. This has been Part 5. In here on White Run, and this is part of the Isaac Lightner Farm, Part 6. White Run actually flows in this direction southward. And one of the neat little tidbits about White Run, first off, in this area were the Native American Indians. The early settlements of Gettysburg were all along White Run, Rock Creek, Marsh Creek area. And arrowheads have been found in the area around Gettysburg and places like this, showing that there were Indian settlements here. Now, White Run, which runs southward in the direction that our camera is facing, is only about a half of a mile from the Isaac Lightner Farm, just to the south of us where our camera is facing now. As this continues southward, White Run dumps into the Rock Creek, which then dumps into the Monocacy River, which then dumps into the Potomac River. That dumps into the Chesapeake Bay, and then of course the Chesapeake Bay ends at the Atlantic Ocean. So if we were to follow this southward, you'd end up in the Atlantic Ocean. I think that's kind of cool little tidbit here. Also, even though I stand out here in late August, early September, and it's 90 degrees, it's muggy, the waters here are very, very cold. There's a lot of frogs in them. There's a lot of crayfish. There's a lot of life to these waters, and the waters are nice and cold. And I just splashed some on my face a few minutes ago, and it was very pleasant. And as I did that, I got to thinking, you know, as the Lightner Farm was being used as a field hospital, water was used for many purposes. It was used by the surgeons to wash wounds and dirty, filthy rags. It was used by soldiers for drinking water. It could be boiled and purified, and of course it was also used for pleasantries. You get any type of water that's and splash it on your face or put it on a rag and wipe it across your body, and it's pleasant to the touch. So having a field hospital, as we said, in Lightner area was a perfect location due to its proximity with White Run. This has been Part 6 of the Isaac Lightner Farm here at White Run on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook.